So the COVID inquiry has been an absolute banger for the past couple of days. And to be honest, it still promises to be, so we say, dropping the absolute more bangers to come, because of course we've still got Matt Hancock to come, as well as potentially Boris Johnson. There's more key advisors still to come. And all of this is just regurgitating what we already knew, that the chaos in number 10 was just that bad, that they were that unprepared, that they had absolutely no idea on what they were doing. They were running around like headless chickens. This is hardly, shall we say, the picture of a party that proclaims to be the government of choice for the United Kingdom, that under their stewardship, the United Kingdom can feel safe. As we've always said, because the Tories have continued in this ideological path, that only their ideas and this one specific idea of free market fundamentalism that they are obsessed with, going on down with in, well, various degrees at the moment, that only that and that will bring true benefits and prosperity to the United Kingdom. And this is the direction that they have progressed in. Any other ideas or anything like that? No, that's just heresy and should be cast out as that's just, treasury orthodoxy. That's just, quote, left-wing thinking. And we've seen this time and time again where they just keep on doubling down on their bad ideas. We've seen it with immigration. We've seen it with policing. We've seen it with the economy. Time and time again, they cannot seem to understand that it is their own ideas that have led them into this terrible place. And allowing these ideologues to be in charge has driven them into this bad place. And there is something now that is emerging, which they know could be the absolute death knell for their party. Why on earth should the Tories ever be allowed back into power, given the type of chaos that they created from their 13 years of being in power? And it's always worth remembering that back when David Cameron was up against Ed Miliband, the call to action for people to vote Conservative in the UK was, you can have strong and stable with David Cameron, or you can have a coalition of chaos with Ed Miliband. And we have to ask, what chaos did those consequences end up unleashing upon the United Kingdom? Well, before we do, of course, get into that a bit more, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all the people who do help and support the channel that way. Like I say, even if you do just click the like and share button, there is, of course, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there is the Pony Club down below as well. I have released a video this week as well, although it was a day late. Like I say, as I say, life just gets ahead of you sometimes. But it is now for you out there for you all to enjoy. And of course, the many other videos that I've created as well. So it is absolutely undeniable that even before the COVID inquiry became a thing, many Conservatives were out there saying, yeah, we really don't want a COVID inquiry because we know it is going to make us look bad. We know how bad it is going to make us, and it is going to re-dredge up everything that happened during the pandemic and just how bad they were. And lo and behold, it is doing just that. And now you have conservative media trying to discredit the COVID inquiry. And bear in mind, I say discredit, they would say, oh, that's far too a strong word. We're not trying to discredit the inquiry. We're just trying to ask the right questions. We're just being skeptical. We're just trying to make sure that the COVID inquiry asks the right questions. And I had two options, to be honest, to choose from today's stories, both from Conservative Home. One was by the chief editor of Conservative Home, who was saying, "Oh my word, look at the COVID inquiry. It's just becoming an absolute left-wing media circus." Yes, it is becoming a media circus because we cannot believe the amount of clowns that were in number 10 basically with people like Matt Hancock asking if he could choose who lived and who died, not medical professionals. and are we shocked that there is, of course, this amount of attention on this, public inquiry? No. So that was one, and I strongly considered going over that. However, Emily Carver took the absolute biscuit on this, because here you have what most of these right-wing media types and personalities are currently trying to do. They're not discrediting the inquiry, they're just asking questions. And I'm going to skip most of this because I want to cover our old favorite. Because what a lot of these right-wing media types are doing are going back to, of course, pre-lockdown days. If you remember those pre-lockdown days, there were conservatives and people in the conservative media sphere who were going, "We don't need to lock down. It's just a cold. We'll be fine. We don't need to lock down. If we lock down, it'll just damage the economy." And now you have Emily Carver seriously wants the COVID inquiry to ask a question: was lockdown worth it? Anyone can tell you, and any current medical professionals out there will tell you, yes, lockdown was worth it. Because if we hadn't locked down, our economy would have suffered even more. And of course, she brings up that good old classic, what about Sweden? So we're going to go over the end of her article that she wrote about this, but it's just so infuriating that they're desperately trying to deflect now away from what is going on in the inquiry to point people away. And of course, Emily Carver, presenter on GB News, we shouldn't be surprised this is what she's trying to do. So she goes through all this stuff saying, "Oh, look at all this stuff. Yes, it's all bad, etc., etc." But this is the inquiry isn't asking the right questions. Um, and this is where it gets bad. So at the end of this, in a summing up and conclusion of all this, she asks, "Why did we choose an authoritarian approach to virus control rather than follow the example of Sweden?" Most of you will know, I know, who have followed this before. This is the cry of these guys. "Oh, look at Sweden. Sweden did a lockdown." Again, that's absolutely false. Sweden absolutely went into lockdown. A big part of why Sweden did not go into lockdown so quickly compared to other countries was because it had a far, far more in-depth and better safety net structure than our country. But eventually, Sweden did go into lockdown because it recognized, just like everyone else, lockdown was going to be a vital part of trying to control this virus. Do you ever see these right-wing people going to talk to Swedish politicians or Swedish medical people who were involved in trying to do this in Sweden? No, absolutely not. And I would love to talk to someone like that. I think that would be fascinating to see, like, their version of our, like, David Whitty. Although, to be honest, I know that I'm far too small to be to attract that type of person. But I would love to generally speak to someone who is involved in this, because you would see why eventually they didn't have to lock down so quickly as we did because of their social safety net, their secure, their stuff, all their stuff that they provide. And bear in mind, Emily Carver, if they even if our government or the Labour government even brought any of this kind of stuff in, they would balk, cry that this is absolutely unnecessary, that this is a colossal waste of money. Why are we doing this? They're increasing the size of the state. We shouldn't be doing this. We should be shrinking the size of the state. They would never do anything or bring in any of the kind of stuff that there is in Sweden. So here it goes. So, so why didn't they follow the example of Sweden? Question mark. Does the government and its advisors still stand by this decision, considering the numbers of lives lost due to the measures imposed? Oh, how about the number of lives saved due to the number of measures imposed? Because we still had quite a high body count because of COVID. And does she seriously want to say that if we hadn't gone into lockdown, there would have been a lower body count? Honestly, these people are lunatics. So how was it decided that we would lock down young, healthy people at little risk of the virus instead of shielding the vulnerable? Ah, yes, because the young and healthy people should have just gone out and still continued to work, and thus they be put at risk. Where was the cost benefit analysis of cordoning off outdoor exercise areas or park benches? And critically, why weren't citizens allowed to make these decisions for themselves? Oh yes, because if we just tell people this, everyone will follow these rules and laws. Unfortunately, we had to go into lockdown. It was decided that that was the best way. This is how every country eventually went into lockdown, and we had to make sure that this was enforced. Like it or not, this is why lockdowns happen. This is how they happen. So, did the government ever make decisions due to the pressure from the media? Gee, I wonder which media she's talking about, because she was part of the media that was saying, hey, don't lock down. And of course, we know now about the Spectator link, that the government was bunging a couple of quid over to the Spectator every so often. How about that media link? The public health lobby and the unions, rather than from scientific data. They were following the scientific data. That's the thing. The problem is they had the scientific data, they just weren't listening to it. We were finding that out from the COVID inquiry already. Did those in power still believe it was right to terrify? Did they still right? It was right to terrify the nation into submission with their fear mongering campaigns and warn us to stay away from our loved ones. Oh my god. This that is nonsense to call these campaigns that were put out fear mongering. These were serious. At the time, we didn't know a lot about this virus. So there was a point where we still didn't even know how this virus was being passed at one point. And does she seriously believe that allowing that would have saved more people's lives? No, no, it wouldn't. That would have ended up with people killing those people, unfortunately, purely by accident, because they might have had COVID, not realized it, and passed it on, or had COVID and gone to see their loved ones anyway. Uh, this honestly, this is an absolute nutcase. But this is the type of thing that we are now seeing from the right wing. They're just asking questions. We're not trying to discredit the COVID inquiry. We're just asking questions. And of course, the thing is, she can get answers to these questions, no problem. She can get answers to these questions, no problem. She can ask the government. She can ask Boris Johnson. After all, he's on GB News now. But I doubt they would ask these kind of hardball questions of Boris Johnson. And why did the rules constantly change with very little notice? Because they were updating the rules as the scientific data was changing at the time. This is the thing about these people who are just asking questions. The answers that they are looking for are out there. They're not hard to find. It's just that they don't like the answer to that question. So they're just asking questions. We're just being skeptical. We're just making sure that the right questions are being asked. We're not trying to discredit the inquiry at all. So these are the questions that I and millions of others, I doubt it's millions of others, it's probably just you, want answers to. Essentially, was it worth it? And will we be forced down to lock again come another virus? Yes. Yes. That, why is that a dumb question? That is such a dumb question to ask. If there is another virus and it requires a lockdown, then yes. What? Just the insanity of these people that, again, does bear repeating. Prior to lockdowns, there was a quite a considerable conservative movement and in the conservative media to say that we should not lock down, that we should just continue on as normal and just carry on. And Emily Carver is part of that movement. Once again, she's asking questions, and the thing is, she's absolutely fine to ask questions. There is nothing wrong with that. The thing is, all those answers that she's seeking are already out there. They're already existing. The thing is, with people like her, they do not accept the answer once it is given because they are, oh, I'm just being skeptical. I'm just making sure that really is, the right question. Or I want a second opinion. Mark my words. Mark my words. We are going to see more of this because this is now the new tactic to try and discredit the COVID inquiry. And of course, as I said, they'll say, oh no, we're not trying to discredit the inquiry. We're just asking questions. We're just making sure the inquiry is going to ask the right questions. No. This is part of the conservative anti-lockdown movement that existed. And you're going to see those people start to try and push that because those people were discredited straight away once we went into lockdown. Once we saw other countries, again, a week before us, were all going into lockdown. And we're like, why aren't we going into lockdown? Why aren't we going to lockdown? Hey, we need to lock down now. People remember back on Twitter at that time, there was a big hashtag lockdown now that entire week. That was trending for an entire week because people couldn't believe that we hadn't locked down. And then, of course, again, look at Sweden. I think I have some Swedish viewers, but if there's anyone out there who knows of like articles or stuff like that of how like Sweden went and handled their lockdown, especially if it comes from like people who are part of like the Swedish government or like the Swedish public health system. I would love to see those. I would love to see that because I would love to do a video on that to discredit these idiots like this, like Emily Carver, who just believe that Sweden never went into lockdown at all. It was just a magical place where COVID just didn't exist. Um, yeah, expect to see more of this. Expect to see more of this stuff. The conservative media is, I think, going to go hard as possible it can to try and say, it doesn't matter what all this bad stuff that's coming out, they are trying to find a way in some way, shape, or form to discredit it. And as I said, they'll say we're not discrediting it. We're just, asking questions. That old, chestnut that we've seen 1,000 times from people like this. And of course, the questions, yeah, their answers to the questions are out there. Emily Carver for this could have gone and asked, experts. Has she gone and asked out any experts? Apparently not. I think that shows that the depth of her journalistic integrity, and of course, ultimately the object of this this blog that she wrote. She's not interested, of course, in the inquiry or whatever. She's just trying to provide a smokescreen and try and sort of get people to ask questions. When reality, it's a massive smokescreen to avoid the reality of just what's going on this inquiry and what it's finding, what it's uncovering. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.